Good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to Orinoco Tribune's special episode on Haiti. And amid reports on gang violence and the deeply racist portrayal of Haitians as ungovernable, what is rarely being highlighted in both mainstream media and regrettably also in alternative media is the ongoing invasion of Haiti, led as usual by the United States, but this time with a Kenyan blackface. The political situation in Haiti seems to be unsustainable as well, with the US imposed Transitional Council unable to maintain a constant structure, let alone being in a position to hold free and fair elections on time. And amid this crisis, potentially anti imperialist uprisings are coming up as well. In order to discuss all these things and to put them in context and to try to understand where the country might be headed to, we are joined by Kim Ives of IT Liberté. Kim is a journalist, a documentary maker, and an authority on Haitian issues. He is one of the founders of the weekly newspaper Haiti Liberté, where he is a writer and an editor. Previously, he wrote, edited, and photographed for IT Progrès for 23 years. He has also written for numerous other publications such as The Guardian, The Nation, The Intercept, The Progressive, Jacobin, and NACLA Report on the Americas. Some of his well-known documentaries include Peter Kane, Haitien Le Campe, The Coup Continues, Killing the Dream, and Resistance. His latest work is the documentary series Another Vision Inside Haiti's Uprising, jointly directed with Dan Cohen. Ives is a member of Crowing Roosters Art, a film collective specializing in films on Haiti. He is a founding member of the International Support Haiti Network, formerly the Haiti Support Network, and has led numerous delegations to the country since 1986 to investigate human rights violations, union struggles, peasant land conflicts, and the state enterprise privatization schemes. He is a frequent guest on radio and television networks and shows, including Al Jazeera, Democracy Now!, CGTN, National Public Radio, The Hill, The Real News Network, Turkish TV, and several Pacifica Network and Progressive Radio Network programs. And thanks a lot, Kim, for joining us today on this special episode that we are going to host. And thanks a lot. And we invite you once again, if maybe your fourth or fifth appearance there. So thank you.
Thank you. It's always such a pleasure to be hosted by Orinoco Tribune, which is, as many will agree, a mainstay of the anti-imperialist movement in terms of information and analysis.
Well, thanks a lot for the shout out, by the way. And today I'm also joined by Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa, the editor of Orinoco Tribune, who will will start the interview basically.
Yes, thank you, Sahili, and thank you, Kim, for joining us again. The first question that we have for you, taking into consideration the framework that Sahili already drew in her, introduction, is this one. I mean, we should start with a background idea of the situation in Haiti. For the interview, we would discuss some points in more detail, but just to give us an idea to begin with, how would you describe, in brief, the current socio-political situation in Haiti?
Right now, it's very chaotic. We are in the throes of a social revolution as far as we're concerned. The US has tried to put in place this puppet grouping, but with typical stupidity, Anthony Blinken took the entire political class and put them in one group governing the country. And this has created a group that's completely dysfunctional and completely at each other's throats. And so they built instability right into their puppet structure. And already we're on our second prime minister, Alex Didier Fils-Aimé, who just replaced Gary Coney about 2 weeks ago. Lenin said that revolutions don't happen when the masses are hungry and miserable. They happen when there's division within the ruling class. And that's exactly what's happening now. But not just in the Haitian ruling class, but in the, I could say, Western imperialist ruling class, as we can see everywhere, from France, where Macron seems to be on the way out, to the US, where Biden has just gotten the heave-ho. We see complete acrimony between the different sectors of the bourgeoisie in each of these countries, how to manage the crisis. So right now in Haiti, I think, and that can change tonight, right this minute, the insurgency, which is called the Vivre Ensemble, the Live Together, which is a coalition basically of poor neighborhood armed groups, which has come together and is essentially, they're building the plane as they fly it. Jimmy Chérizier, known as Barbecue, is of course the principal face of this movement. Right now, for the past week or 10 days, he's been silenced because essentially the other members of the Vivre Ensemble told him to chill out and stop talking so much on TikTok lives and etc. Mainly TikTok lives, which would have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people following, within 10 minutes of him starting one. TikTok kept closing them down. He would pop up somewhere else. They seem presently to have been able to ban all the Vivre Ensemble people who were setting up these TikToks. We'll see how they handle that. But right now, he's been quiet for about a week or 10 days. And, this has, of course, led to speculation. Was he killed? Is he sick? Is he in hiding? Has he fled? Blah, 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 a million and one rumors. But they tend to have the upper hand at this moment in terms of initiatives, in terms of, I would even say, the propaganda war that's going on. The cops keep putting out statements that, oh, we killed 20 over here or 50 over there. And the masses are doing a bois-calé, what means a kind of vigilance brigade, barricades where they, kill supposed people from the Vivre Ensemble. We can get into that more. But in short, they're making stuff up. These things are sort of become patently revealed within a day or two or three. And it's gotten to the point where just yesterday, and we have this in the edition of Haiti Liberté that came out yesterday, 2 days ago, the police they put out arrest warrants for 3 Haitian expats living in the United States and Canada who have been joining those live streams that I just mentioned. And so they've put out arrest warrants and supposedly alerted Interpol to arrest them. I don't know. I've never seen any Interpol policeman or woman in the streets, and I don't know how that would even happen. I don't think they can arrest you because you don't agree with somebody's political opinion, but that's essentially what they're trying to do. So it kind of is indicative of the level of desperation of this puppet government and how flailing and crazed and authoritarian it's becoming in its efforts to try to steady the boat. But in the final analysis, the Vivre Ensemble seems to have the upper hand in terms of propaganda and even in terms of force on the ground, while the government seems to be beleaguered and divided and totally lacking any popular support in the population. So that's the thumbnail I would give.
Yeah, of course. By government, of course, you mean interim government, because it does not even have a government right now, right?
Right. It's just a cabal at the head. Yeah.
Just something put together haphazard, so whatever. Just the US puts together interim, parallel, whatever governments around
Yeah.
the world. But anyway, so I was going to ask you specifically something that you have, I mean, in IT Liberty, you have published it. This is that you have called this uprising by V1 some, maybe by other groups also throughout the country, as Haiti's second revolution. So why this branding? Why do you call it Haiti's second revolution?
Yes. Well, for me, in the past 30 years, we've seen two types of revolution. The first, and I make a difference between them, was a political revolution. And that was the revolution that happened in 1990 with the Lavalas family party and Jean Bertrand Aristide's accession to power. It was the first time that the people's candidate got to power instead of one selected by the empire, US principally, since 1915 when US Marines invaded the country. And that was a political revolution in the sense that he captured the presidency, and that's all he captured. You know, none of the economy, none of the infrastructure of the deep state of Haiti, such as it is, was captured, just the presidency. And we saw very quickly that that's not much. It's like trying to hold on to a rhinoceros by a hair on its tail. You know, it just immediately they gave him coups d'etats, both in 1990 and 2000 when he came to power. The first coup d'etat took 8 months to be put together. The second coup d'etat took about 4 years, 3.5 years. And they both were followed by foreign military interventions to lock down the country and basically reestablish order. So political revolutions are basically very shallow, and we can go back to Poland in the early 20th century and Pilsudski, you know, who tried to become a kind of a Aristide, but, you know, he got kicked out because the fundamentals, the economy, were not touched. The bourgeoisie just put their money together and made a coup, and out you go. Of course, with the US mostly backing them all the way. So a social revolution is where the masses take over the means of production. The factories, the land, the ports, all the infrastructure of the country comes under the control of the people, as we've seen in Cuba or China or Soviet Revolution of 1917. You know, these are social revolutions, and that's what happened in 1804 in Haiti. The self-freed slaves basically kicked out the French. They took over the country. That was the first social revolution. So I call this the second social revolution, which is underway. Will it be successful? That's anybody's guess. We'll see what happens. But, you know, with the Trump group, you know, I don't think they're globalists in particular, in general. We've seen that with the Biden group. They're trying to use the UN and, you know, proxies in the form of Kenyans. You know, they're going through all kinds of permutations. And as we've discussed in your programs, this is all so they can put in place the Global Fragility Act, which is an act which basically puts a US military base in a country on a bilateral agreement basis for 10 years and puts the country on a lifeline of US surplus food, what they call, you know, PL 480 or food aid, which, as I think Hubert Humphrey said, is food is a weapon, and it's our most effective weapon. So that's the US endgame, is get there. And so to make it not too ugly, to have US troops basically invite US troops, they're trying to go through this whole Kenyan rigmarole. But I don't think Trump will do that. You know, I think he's more of a, you know, just get the job done or send in the 82nd Airborne and, you know, take over and do it, you know, just the same way he did in Syria, you know, where they hold 1/3 of Syria, their oil fields, just as he's going to be more blatant. They take the mask off, they take the velvet glove off, and they just, that may be one, or they may just disregard Haiti. It's a shithole, as he famously said back in 2017. So anyway, we'll wait and see. But that social revolution is really what the Vivre Ensemble, what Chérizier has been articulating for the past 4 years.
Oh, let's hope. I mean, I call Trump more honest in a twisted sense of the term, but yes, he's like with mask off. At least you can see exactly what the U.S. empire is without its all sorts of masks. So, since you mentioned Chérizier, I was going to ask you about him, and I consider him. I mean, he seems as one of the most enigmatic figures in this second revolution. So, and you have in this program, as well as in IT Liberté specifically, as well as in other television appearances, you have discussed his position in detail. However, there are some organizations, which we'll not name here, but anyway, organizations that are supposedly on the same side of the political spectrum as you or I am. They hold the view that the coalition that Chérizier heads, that is Vivre Ensemble, is a gang and a tool of the bourgeoisie. This is a direct quote. So, from where does this discrepancy in vision arises? And do you think that Cherizier's former career as a police officer contributes to this negative image of him, or is there anything else there?
Okay, well, we'll try to unpack it or tease apart this disinformation, I could call it, which is fundamentally the position of the State Department of the Haitian bourgeoisie, is to vilify the guy who's threatening the system. To begin with, the question of the gangs are tools of the bourgeoisie. Let's deal with that half-truth, because that's probably the most complex part of it. Because really from 2000, when Jimmy Chérizier founded the G9, which was called the G9 Family and Allies, mess with one, you mess with all. This was in June of 2020. He founded it, and its purpose was to stop kidnapping, extortion, rape, all crimes in the poor neighborhoods, and to get services for those neighborhoods, hospitals, roads, schools, electricity, sanitation, and all the fundamentals of civilization. The next day, the bourgeoisie set up a counterfront called the GPEP, which was basically the criminal groups which were involved in kidnapping, etc. And that began basically 3 years of war between the G9 and the GPEP. And the GPEP, which means G people, was supported by the bourgeoisie, by the government of Ariel Henry, who came in after Jovenel Moïse's death. And they were there precisely to fight the G9. And so this has been the dilemma for Chérizier, was he was outgunned, out-soldiered. They had more ammo, they had more money than he did. And so he was always, in his attempts to overthrow Ariel Henry in the fall of 2021, in the fall of 2022, he said, I can't do it because they hit me from behind. I'm going up against the police as well as the JPEP. So he couldn't get anywhere. He said, my only solution is to win them over. So when Ariel Henry was inviting in the Kenyans, he went to these guys, and even in Another Vision, you'll see, he's always said, my enemy are not these guys I'm fighting. My enemy is the bourgeoisie. My enemy is the imperialists. And so his goal was to win over these groups which had been involved in criminal activity and supported by the bourgeoisie. He had to win them over because he said, listen, the Kenyans are coming. They're coming for me. But when they get me, they're going to come for you. So you have all interests to throw in with me, and we set things straight in this country so we can stop this, because none of us are happy doing it. Even the criminal gangs, they don't enjoy kidnap. They're not sadists. They're just desperate, and they don't enjoy kidnapping or all the terrible things they've done. One, because I think some of them, there may be some twisted people in it, but that's not what they want to be doing. And two, even when they do it, even if they get some money from it, what can they do with it? They're stuck in their little garrison neighborhoods. So he managed in September to launch this, September of 2023, to launch the Vivre Ensemble, which was basically the merger of JPEP and G9. And again, as I did in the Democracy Now! Interview, I explained it's a little bit like Mao Zedong coming together with Chiang Kai-shek to push out the Japanese in the 1940s. So it's a little bit like Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Alexandre Pétion, two of Haiti's founding fathers, who were bitter enemies, even though they were both French generals. Just as Chérizier has been a cop of the Haitian police for many years, but those two French generals put aside their differences. They were enemies. They got together and they made the Haitian Revolution, and that's why the Haitian flag has the motto on it: "Union makes force." So they got their forces together, and they basically, from September to February, in the latest film we have, Haiti, Liberté with Uncaptured Media of Dan Cohen, is Intervention versus Revolution. And we're interviewing Chérizier on February 10th or 11th. And we were saying, your Vivre Ensemble doesn't seem to have really gelled, come together. And he's very honest. And that's one thing I really like about Chérizier. He's always very honest. And he said, it's true, we failed so far, but we're going to keep trying. We're trying to put it together. Because at that point, he was still fighting with neighbors, and the formality of the Vivre Ensemble hadn't really taken hold. But when Ariel went to Kenya to sign the final arrangement at the end of February, that's when they all saw, wow, this is really going to happen. And they came together, and Vivre Ensemble really was born on February 29th, when they all coordinated, started to go after the police, shut down the airport, and basically kicked Ariel Henry out. So that is really the explanation of how the bourgeoisie at one point was backing a portion of the gangs. But since Vivre Ensemble started, the bourgeoisie is totally against. There's no bourgeois who support the Vivre Ensemble. It's a Frankenstein monster which has gotten out of control and is now, trashing their businesses, etc. The other element that we have to keep in mind is that in any revolutionary situation, we have what's called the ultra left. You, working around Venezuela, know this very well. How many ultra left currents, criticize Maduro. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. The Socialist Party of Venezuela is corrupt. A million things they come on. They did it with Aristide too. Aristide, even though he's totally sold out and is working as the servant, the vassal of imperialism right now, but back in the day when he was trying to carry out his political revolution, the ultra left was attacking him 100%. So for us, that's exactly what these are. These aren't even organizations generally, Jesus and Saheli. These are mostly individuals, trolls, influencers, I guess we call them in this day and age, who come out with all sorts of incoherent things. Kim Ives and Dan Cohen are CIA, but then the next minute we are, it's incoherent, because one second you're CIA and the second moment you are supporting the very target of the CIA and the NED and the State Department, which are the gangs. So you don't know, where they really stand, except that they are totally attacking the same movement that US imperialism and French imperialism is attacking. And this goes back to the Russian Revolution. People can think of what were called the socialist revolutionaries at the time, which had been sort of allies of the Bolsheviks in the beginning, but they quickly turned on the Bolsheviks and became some of their worst enemies. And Lenin talks a great deal about this in Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. He talks about the SRs, as they're known, the Socialist Revolutionaries. So the SRs, since the Bolshevik Revolution, and really I encourage people to go read Left-Wing Communism, an Infantile Disorder, because there's some people who talk left but walk right. And their goal of the ultra-left is to attack the left, to attack whatever movement. And essentially they bring, in Creole we say, porter de l'eau à moulin, bring water to the mill. They bring water to the mill of imperialism by attacking the people that imperialism is fighting. And that's what's happening today. And I mean, who can be attacking Orinoco Tribune? I mean, come on, so.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably talk about the attacks on Orinoco Tribune later. I mean, Jesus will talk about it because he is the one who is going to talk about it anyway. Okay. But yeah, I mean, we have all had this experience of ultra left. I mean, in fact, it is said that the far left is so far left that it joins the right. So exactly. That's something like that.
Well, now, that's what my mentor used to say. He said, because the earth is round, they go so far left, they come up on the other side.
Well, yeah, that's I think that's a very common thing everywhere in politics.
Okay,
okay, so and well, it was just after the 29th February deal between Ariel Henry and the Kenyan government, let's say, blessed by the US, that we had you on this program. It was in early March, I remember. And at that time, you actually talked about the multinational security support mission for Haiti. And it was created by the US, as we all know, and it was like a non-UN force, whatever it was, but it was still in the making at that time. They were just signing things. However, since then, I understand that it was created and it was dispatched to Haiti. So what is the situation of this security support mission or whatever it is called, and how are its operations functioning? I mean, are they functioning at all?
It's a disaster. And we knew it was going to be a disaster. We published a covert interview, which was done with a State Department guy who was helping to organize it, and he said this is going to be a total disaster. And it has turned out to be that. The MSS was supposed to have 2,500 troops from many countries, 10 countries or 12, I think he had at some point. But right now it's basically 430, mostly Kenyans. There's a smattering of Jamaicans and Bahamas cops. I think there are 2 of them in there, but it's almost all Kenyan. But it is totally supported by the US because they're having to pay for it, not the UN. And they can't. They can't even keep up. The collection at the UN has been dismal. So basically 3/4 of the budget of the MSS is being covered by the US. And as we know, the empire is overextended. They have Gaza, they have Ukraine, they have Lebanon now, Iran, China coming online soon. So they can't even get ammunition to the cops. So they are in a total state of, I could say, dysfunction. The Kenyans have rarely left their US-built barracks down by the airport. They've gone out for a couple of photo op, operations where they go into a house which has been abandoned for 4 years and kick in the doors or shoot into a mattress. I mean, just really silly stuff. And the US, I think now with Trump's victory, is panicked because they say, oh boy, we got to get this through into the UN Security Council's hands before Trump comes in, because he's liable to pull the plug on the whole thing. So they made a big push, starting with Blinken, basically making a trip to Haiti, telling them, listen, we're trying to get this into a UN peacekeeping operation, what they call a PKO, peacekeeping operation. So we want to make it a UN PKO. They had another session to this effect on November 20th in the Security Council, called by Russia and China. I had spoken already, so Dan Cohen, my colleague on Another Vision, spoke at that. And again, he just sent a missile into midships of this project, even though the US has the votes on the Security Council maybe to vote it in, but I think Russia or China would veto it, probably. A lot of this stuff is decided beforehand. They know, whether the veto is coming or not. So in any case, it's a disaster, and they renewed it for a year on the beginning of October. But I think that it's not going anywhere. And so it's a coalition of the willing, if you will, right? Basically funded by the US, but nobody's willing. None of these countries would say, okay, I'll go, but then they don't come. So there's no money and there's no will. And so I don't think much is going to happen with it. And this is one of the dilemmas of the empire right now in Haiti.
Well, I'll be really glad if that, it does not go through, because in fact, there is the UN peacekeeping mission has been misused in Haiti, if you will. You know better than me, but there is no reason why there should be a UN peacekeeping mission in Haiti, because it's not at war with any other country. The UN peacekeeping mandate, US peacekeeping mandate is not for internal issues, right? As far as I understand, but apparently many people don't. Anyway, so we are going to.
No, that's very important to underline. You are not supposed to send foreign peacekeepers in just to stabilize the internal things. It's for international peace and security, which means a fight between two states, between India and Pakistan, say. But you're not supposed to send it in to Haiti. So,
yeah. I have seen that. Everywhere where UN peacekeeping missions have been sent, most have been outside the mandate, and Haiti is the flagrant misuse, if I can call it. Anyway, so at the same time, apart from this non-UN multinational security support mission, the US also imposed an interim government. Well, government, it's not even a government, but anyway, an interim structure in Haiti with an interim prime minister. You recently mentioned that the original one was changed by, replaced recently. So that means that this government, or whatever it is, does not seem to be very stable. And so what is happening within this interim administration, and would it be capable of holding free and fair elections within I don't know how long, like 6 months or something?
Yeah, I'll be extremely surprised if they're able to bring in an elected government on February 7th, 2026, which is when it's supposed to be put in place. They can't even get the Electoral Council together right now. They're in a retreat. The Ives, which is another branch of this deep state, NED, Ives is the International Election System, International Foundation for Election Systems, Ives. So basically, that's the arm of the soft power that goes in and directs how they're going to set it up. And so they're meeting as we speak in Cape Haitian, in the north of Haiti, to try to set up this election. But it's, they don't control anything. And this council, when it came in, they immediately showed their true colors, 3 of the counselors went to the president of a bank and tried to shake him down for about $800,000 to say, listen, if you want to keep your spot, this was the National Bank of Credit, BNC, you're going to have to give us 800 grand. And if you don't get it, you're out. Well, he went and immediately blew the whistle on this. He went to Kony, the former prime minister, now out, we'll get to that. And instead of sanctioning these guys, they fired the bank president. And there became a huge crisis within the what's called the TPC, the Transitional Presidential Council in English, CPT in French. But TPC had a huge crisis because some of the rivals of these groups, because there are, just to give the TPC structure a little bit, there are 9 members of the TPC. 2 of them are just ornamental, they're non-voting, they represent the NGOs and the church. But the 7 voting members represent basically the 7 different political sectors of Haiti's political class. Some of them overlap a little bit. So they're all rivals, but they're basically in 2 different blocks. And one of the key blocks is an alliance of, I could say, the business community, because most of them are parties, except for, as usual, the business. The bourgeoisie has their own representative in there. So the bourgeoisie, a thing called the Montana Accord, which is sort of the enlightened liberal bourgeoisie, headed up by people who participated greatly in the 2004 coup d'etat. And then the Lavalas family party, which, so those 3 are kind of one sector. And right now, they're the ones in power. That's the dominant sector. Because the guys who were involved, 3 of them from other sectors who were involved in this corruption scandal, they didn't know what to do. Are we going to kick them out? Are we going to fire them? Well, they took a half step. They said, instead of these guys assuming the rotating presidency, because basically they're having each one of the presidential counselors hold the presidency for 5 months, and then that will bring us to the election. Okay, so they said, okay, you guys can't do it, and they replaced, for instance, the person who was supposed to be president now was not the guy who is Leslie Voltaire, who represents the Lavalas family party. So just to give it more of a class thing, essentially, as in most countries, there are factions in the ruling class, in the bourgeoisie of Haiti. There was one faction which was linked more to the Martelly sector, what is called the PHTK, the Haitian Bald-Headed Party. And then there's another faction, let's call them the Republicans. There's another faction which is kind of the Lavalas family in what's called Unité, Unity, which was the party sector of René Préval, who is sort of some sort of ally of Aristide, even though they had some quibbles at some points. But right now, Lavalas and Unité and their bourgeois sector is supreme. PHTK people have been kicked out. So that is who's ruling. Is Leslie Voltaire is the president right now, the temporary president for the next few months. And the prime minister, who has replaced Gary Kony as of 2 weeks ago, is a guy called Alex Didier Fissimé, who is part of this bourgeois group, which has at its core a bourgeois group known as the Makaya group. And it has Fissimé, a guy called Olivier Barrault, another family called Handal, Handal, also another bourgeois called Baussan, Baussan, and of course the Vorbe family is very key. Dimitri Vorbe has always been the backer of Unité. I hope I'm not going too much into the weeds here, of Unité, the Préval sector, and Pasha Vorbe is practically the guy who runs the Lavalas family now. So basically, those are the bourgeois groups running the show in Haiti right now, but of course, under the aegis of the US State Department and Anthony Blinken. And they're so royalist, just to give you a last anecdote, is that Leslie Voltaire basically told the foreign ministers who were coming into the new Didier Fils-Aimé government, the foreign ministers had to not be anti-Dominican Republic, where I am right now, in any way, because Luis Abinader, the president here, who is very pro-foreign intervention in Haiti and is kicking out 10,000 Haitians a week out of the Dominican Republic. 500,000 Haitians have been kicked out of here in the past 2 years. He basically said to the foreign ministers coming in, if you have any quibbles or criticisms for Dominican Republic, you're not getting the post. So that just shows you what lackeys we have in the leadership of the country at this point.
Not even a real leadership, but imposed, and who does
it? Totally. Total finger puppets. Yeah.
Who do they even lead? That's the question. But yeah, I have already mentioned Dominican Republic, and we cannot talk about Haiti without talking about Dominican Republic. And I find it very funny that there are still many people who consider Abinader to be some sort of left. I mean, really. But anyway, so we're now going to talk about Dominican Republic-Haiti relations. So this thing is about the economy. I'll specifically focus on economy, perhaps. So the many economists, and including some on the left, compare the economic situation as well as the social conditions of Haiti and Dominican Republic, and call Haiti or Haitians ungovernable, and that there is no way for Haiti to develop and ostensibly to become like the Dominican Republic. So apart from the obvious racism against Haitians, what other fallacies do you see? I mean, would you like to highlight surrounding this statement, this comparison between the two?
Well, I'm going to give an anecdote to begin the response. I remember I was traveling with a Haitian colleague at one point in an airport. I think we were in Miami, maybe, or we were in Miami, maybe waiting for our bags. And the guy says to him, he goes, Haitiano? And he goes, sí. And he said, both people. And so my guy kind of thought for a minute. He goes, Dominican? He goes, sí. And he goes, oh, prostitute. So to me, that's the essence of the difference between Haiti and Dominican Republic. And we can just take one figure, say external debt. How much money are you taking from the capitalist countries to float your economy? Haiti has a foreign debt, external debt of about 2.5 million. The Dominican Republic has somewhere between $40 and $48 million. So you see something that's 20 times more than the Dominican Republic, because they've sold their soul to the devil, if you will. The Dominican Republic, even though they agreed to go into the Belt and Road Initiative of China, I'm sure much to Washington's chagrin, but they are fundamentally the principal ally in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, of course, is captured, but the Dominican Republic is the principal ally, basically keeping track of what's going on in Haiti and acting as the bad cop, constantly calling for foreign intervention, for whatever is most reactionary. So basically, the Dominican Republic, if Haiti were to sell out and have McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all big agriculture take over the food supply, et cetera, yes, but Dominican Republic, as we know, they're big baseball players. That was brought in by the U.S. Marines at the beginning of the 20th century. Haiti never accepted baseball. Until this day, they don't play baseball in Haiti. They play soccer. So there's something very deep in the Haitian DNA which rejects the imperialist takeover of their country. So Yeah, it makes perfect sense that defenders of the imperialist program, including those on the left, which do it in a convoluted way, would say, yeah, Dominican Republic should be our model, rather than Cuba, the other neighbor next door, which, you know, would be a better model, we think.
Yeah,
Let
but they
me,
will.
Sahi,
Yes, yes, sure.
let me add like an additional question within that question.
Mhm.
I mean, now that we're talking about Dominican Republic and its role in the, you know, foreign intervention in Haiti, I know that sometimes it's not nice to do this, but what countries do you think are doing the worst in Latin America in relation to the Haitian crisis? You know what I mean? I don't want you to name names, but maybe naming names and proposing like a different path to those countries might be more constructive than just naming names. You know?
Okay. Well, I'm afraid that's all I can do is name names because I haven't studied it deeply to even know a lot of the dynamics. But Dominican Republic, of course, in every Security Council meeting, Dominican Republic is there. They're not part of the Security Council, but they're always invited. They always sit right next to the person giving the presentation. For example, when I gave it in December 21st, 2022, Dominican guy was sitting right next to me, foreign minister. So Dominican Republic is a key role in being the like the Honduras with relation to Nicaragua in the 1980s. You know, it is the, and it's always been that. It's always been the counter-revolutionary force on the island of Hispaniola. But the key countries in CARICOM, because CARICOM has been the real handmaiden of Washington in this, are Jamaica, Guyana, and I'm afraid to say Barbados. I'm not afraid to say, I will say. So those three have really been the lead agents on this. You know, Gonzalez in, remind me,
Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
St. Vincent and Grenadines, right? It's that duality of it which always confuses me. St. Vincent and Grenadines has been sometimes kind of good, a few others, but those three are really the leaders of the Caribbean / Latin American push. Bukele is making a bid for involvement. You know, he wants to come in, Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Rambo, and, you know, fix all the gangs in Haiti. He's got another thing coming if he thinks he's going to be able to do that. And yeah, that's about it. I don't know. I'm just waiting for Milei in Argentina to throw his hat in the ring. But basically, those are the main ones, Jesus.
Okay, thanks. I mean, it's good to know that Brazil is not being one of the worst in this
Well,
regard.
you know, Brazil has been as usual. Lula is so unclear. I mean, one day he says something good, and the next day something terrible. So you know, he's very confused. I really don't understand Lula. I don't know if it's blackmail or what they have on him, but he's just Amorim, his foreign minister, to me is some kind of U.S. agent. He always has been. And so that might be part of it.
Yeah, it's considered the same in Venezuela as well, because he has been terrible on that issue as well.
Yeah,
but
terrible. He's the worst.
The only positive thing that has come out of the election of Trump was that he has shut up about Venezuela. That's the only thing about Lula. Anyway, so yeah, let's see. I mean, who does whatever? Yes, CARICOM. The last time also with the MSS, and even before that, it has been CARICOM all the time, especially the countries that you mentioned. They have been absolutely terrible on one of their own, which is Haiti. And anyway, so we'll continue with the Dominican Republic because we are on this topic. So I think you have already mentioned a bit, but I'll ask you to go a bit deeper into this issue. Is that what is its role in this current crisis? I mean, the ongoing crisis in Haiti, and why does it want to destabilize Haiti? I mean, what does it gain from a Haiti destabilized, a neighboring country destabilized?
Well, I think they're trying to stabilize their own country because just like Trump, Abinader uses the Haitians as a scapegoat, as an excuse for his own failings here in Dominican Republic. So, that's why he beats the drum of these foreign. But the irony is right now, the Dominicans are having trouble with manpower because Haitians do all the work in the fields and the construction sites. They do the cheap labor here in Dominican Republic. So, they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. And, the result is more problems. But also, I think they're really trying to provoke or provide the grist for a foreign military intervention, either by the UN, which they totally supported in the November 20th meeting. People can check out that meeting on the UN website, or so they're trying to provoke that and give even Trump reason to send in the 82nd Airborne if it comes to that, because they're just trying to show that Haiti, and it has to be said, they have no interest in Haiti being strong. They've destroyed its agriculture by dumping their agriculture on Haiti, everything from lemons to oranges to sugarcane to you name it. They everything that Haiti used to produce, now the Dominican Republic produces, and they ship it in. Even the roads, they come and build the roads in Haiti. Haiti is made largely of limestone, so it's practically a country made of concrete, and they used to have the biggest cement factory in the Caribbean, but Ciment d'Haïti, Cement of Haiti, which the neoliberal reforms in the 1990s shut down. And so, Haiti should be the construction colossus of the region, but instead it's the Dominicans which come in. So a weakened Haiti provides a market for, the Dominican capitalists to come in and sell their either engineering or construction or all their agricultural products.
Okay, so let me jump now with the next question that will take us out of the, conversation about Dominican Republic and other Latin American countries messing in Haiti. But this is something that intrigues me a lot, especially because what I do is besides, doing the editorial work in Orinoco Tribune, is also, surfing on social media platforms and, trying to listen what is happening and what people say. And let me read the question that I wrote, and then we can jump into the details. I mean, why do you think that there are people attacking you? I'm talking about Ives, of course, Dan Cohen, Haiti Liberté, and even Orinoco Tribune on social media outlets, platforms, due to your position on Chérizier. It may be noted that some of these people who call themselves progressive or anti-imperialists adopt contradictory positions, like asking, for example, the FBI to go against you, or begging the U.S. administration for sanctions against Chérizier or other Haitian persons and organizations, and they call themselves also anti-imperialists and socialists, and they have this, erratic behavior. So I don't like to name names. I believe that the idea is not to name names, but I believe that one has to address these issues from time to time, right?
Yeah. Right. And, I'll say a little bit, as I was saying before, these tend to be ultra leftists who generally don't have any real base. We have one character in New York who's organized 2 demonstrations now outside Haiti Liberté. They never have more than about a dozen people. I think the last one, the second one, had 6 people. And I mean, they have nothing better to do, but you don't hear them bringing the same denunciation of Leslie Voltaire and the Lavalas family. This is not their problem, what imperialists are doing. Their problem is what Haiti Liberté, which I can say has been the standard bearer of the anti-imperialist left in Haiti for 18 years now, going on 18 years, because they disagree with our position on Chérizier and the potential of it, and the fact that we, as Marxist-Leninists, as scientific socialists, as anti-imperialists, need to accompany this, what we see as almost a spontaneous, almost autonomous uprising in the poor masses. The bourgeoisie gave them guns to fight among each other. They got religion, as they say in Creole, zombie goûté sel, the zombie tasted salt, and he came out of his trance, and now they turn their guns on the bourgeoisie. We should be supporting this. We should be guiding it. We should be trying to say, listen, look at the experience of Venezuela or Cuba or China or Russia or whatever experiences bring our years, our decades of involvement in this and help them bring the ship into port. So, fundamentally, there's another thing, Jesus, which I didn't say in the last one, is in many ways, these people are threatened by somebody like Chérizier. Because a lot of these people, and again, I won't name names, but they're essentially, they criticize imperialism, but they're usually part of it in the sense that they work for NGOs or organizations that are basically NGOs, or they're based in the United States or Canada. They, as they say, they sit on the back of the bull, but they talk bad about it. In Creole, another proverb. So they fundamentally, Chérizier did what they should have been doing: go into the poor neighborhoods and say, look at the sewage these people are living in, as he does in Another Vision in the 3rd episode, where you are taken around these horrific slums. Why weren't they doing that? Why don't they applaud that? Why don't they say, yes, that's great? No, they have to fight it. They have to say, no, the guy's a devil. And, the other irony is they have no sense of irony. In the beginning, it used to be said that there was a an adjacent neighborhood to Chérizier's Lower Delma, Delma 2, 4, and 6. Those are the names of roads that come off the main artery, Delma. And that neighborhood's name is Bel Air. And this was presented by these same people as the victim neighborhood. Chérizier is trying to take it over. He's attacking them. Terrible things. And now that neighborhood is no longer the victim, the darling, but it turns out, as it's been revealed, that it was run by a kidnapper, a guy called Kempes Sanon, who was, basically the aggressor. And Chérizier was doing defense, as Chérizier would say, if you hit us, we'll hit you back harder. So this left, so-called, between quotation marks, basically a wolf in sheep's clothing, in our opinion, was always holding up Bel Air as the victim and Chérizier as the aggressor. And even now, when it's been shown to the world that Bel Air was the base of these attacks, of this kidnapping ring that Chérizier was basically facing, they still continue with the same. But now it's been transferred to another neighborhood just next to them also, called Solino. But again, as we've shown in Haiti Liberté, and people can go to the site to read these, Solino was essentially a group of cops, and the bourgeoisie and the government, which was supporting Bel Air in their fight against Chérizier, are now supporting Solino. They're the ones who they're sending the guns, ammo, money to fight Chérizier, because Chérizier basically won over this Kempes Sanon, what he calls making a deal with the devil, to neutralize him. He brought Kempes Sanon into the Vivre Ensemble group, even though he doesn't take a very public role in it. And to some extent, Kempes Sanon is under the control of some other heavyweights in the Vivre Ensemble who have basically said to him, listen, buddy, you better you better behave and not mess with Jimmy because, you know, that'll be fatal for you. So he's, or sort of despite his proclivities, the other day, for example, I'm sorry not to get too far afield from your question, Jesus, but there was a kidnapping on November 6th or 9th in Delma 60. And I gave a speech in Washington on September 6th. And there was a nun from the Maryknoll, a Maryknoll nun there. People who know Maryknolls tend to be pretty progressive. And she called me and she said, wow, Kim, you know, I was there at your presentation, but, you know, I have a friend in Delma 60 and her 2 grandsons and 2 other kids that she's taking care of were kidnapped by somebody and along with their driver on their way to school. Can you find out about it? I said, well, you know, I'll see. You know, I didn't really want to bother Chérizier about it, but I sent him a message. I didn't hear back, so I thought, well, you know, maybe he's got too much going on to be able to deal with this kind of thing. But sure enough, 4 days later, there he was with the 4 kids, the driver, and also a journalist who got kidnapped. And he said, listen, these people got kidnapped, and it was a Vivant member who did it. He was talking about Campesino. He didn't name him, the Bel Air guy. And he said, this member violated what we've agreed on. He's being sanctioned. And what Campesino's argument was, apparently, we heard through the grapevine, was that, listen, I don't have the ability to tax cars on roads and things that some of the other groups do. As the FARC used to do in Colombia, right? The war tax. You know, all I can do is kidnapping. I got nothing. But they said, no, listen, you can't do that. You're violating our rules, our ground rules, and you better not do it. And they sanctioned him. So all of this is to say that none of this detail of this reality is brought forth by this ultra left. All they can say is this cartoon. You know, Chérizier is a monster, a criminal, a killer, you know, tool of the bourgeoisie. Oh, look, the guns he's using are from the USA. You know, well, duh, there's not a gun in Haiti that's not from the USA, except for maybe a few Kalashnikovs or something. But everything is bought in Miami and brought down or comes by fast boat from Colombia or Jamaica. So, you know, these kind of facile, totally bogus arguments, sophism is what Lenin would call it. These sophist arguments are used to say, you know, Chérizier is a tool, he's a CIA agent, he's trying to provoke, you know, it's ridiculous. So after a while, you just have to kind of tune them down, and they are essentially SRs, socialist revolutionaries, as I said before, who are there fighting the left, fighting the movement that is hopefully going to bring Haiti's liberation.
Listen, going back to the question and to the characters we are talking about, we talk off camera that any publicity is good publicity, right?
Right. Yeah.
But listen,
as long as they spell your name right.
Yes. But listen, now that we were talking, something came up to my head that might explain why sometimes I try to play the devil within our editorial team about this particular issue of Chérizier. And I was thinking that maybe the reason behind my hesitancy, I don't know how to say it in English, about this issue is that we have also in Venezuela criminal gangs that has been used, especially in recent years, to try to destabilize the country. I mean, the right wing in Venezuela has been using, at least since 2020 or 2021, gangs to try to destabilize the country, starting with the Gideon operation in 2020. So, my question is, do you think that that this gang nature that surrounds Chérizier and the Live Ensemble organization might become something different, something more organic, something more revolutionary, like, as you mentioned, the FARC in Colombia, or something more organized with a program with. Do you think that's a possibility in Haiti? I'm talking about a guerrilla movement. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's in effect, Jesus, what it is developing into. It has, since February of this year, of 2024, become the principal foe of US imperialism in Haiti. This is what they're trying to stamp out. Chérizier's message is very simple, like the Bolsheviks, land, peace, bread. He's saying hospitals, schools, roads, electricity, sanitation, etc. So, and he's saying we need to change the system. And he repeatedly says our principal enemies are the US, France, and Canada, the main neo-colonial masters of Haiti. Now, let's say a revolution happens. Let's say the Vivre Ensemble takes power. It is for sure that the US will use the lumpen proletariat, the disaffected, the same way they're using in Venezuela, the same ways they've done even in Cuba with, you know, the patria vida that they did. You know, they will use whatever they can, the same way they did with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. You know, they'll recuperate even what they were fighting against to use them now against the new power that came in. So, and I think Maduro made that error at some point, or juxtaposition, where he was saying in Haiti, is it like the what's the name of the group that they call it there? It's not Gusanos, but it's like that. What do you call it?
Escuálidos, or Tren del Llano, Tren de Aragua,
yes.
Escuálidos.
Right. So they'll try to do that. And maybe even some members of the Vivre Ensemble coalition would be recuperated. It's possible. But right now, the coalition is holding. They are, you know, having the upper hand against the US forces. But, you know, things change. I mean, look at the Haitian Revolution. Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Pétion put their forces together to drive out the French. But 2 years later, in 1806, Pétion and Henri Christophe, who were two other founding fathers, helped assassinate Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And so, you know, history is nothing but filled with betrayals and reversals. But right now, there's absolutely nothing. There's nobody in the bourgeoisie, and certainly nobody in Washington, who are supporting or backing the Vivre Ensemble and Chérizier. There's a lot of talk given to the fact that Chérizier had a meeting with some US embassy people a few weeks ago, about a month ago, where they offered him a passport and a new identity to forsake his role, because they see he's key in the revolution that's happening. And, you know, just, you know, he'd get relocated into some, you know, suburb of Phoenix in the United States and given a new identity and a passport, etc., and have the good life. But, you know, he instead of taking the offer, he put it out on the live stream, and he said, this is what they're offering me. But, you know, I tell him, screw off. So hopefully, you know, this momentum, this movement, this new consciousness can continue. And but it's for sure, as you say, when if the revolution does take power, they will try to use this same lumpen proletariat, which is rising up against them. They'll try to recuperate as many elements of it as they can. And to some extent, let me just say one other thing, they're doing that right now. A year and a half ago, this is probably more than you bargained for, Jesus. About a year and a half ago, there was a movement called Bois Calé, which means peeled wood. It can also mean raging erection, but, you know, it's kind of a double entendre. But Bois Calé was where the masses took up machetes and they would go and they'd give what's called expedited justice to various criminal gang members. Chérizier was at this point fighting with the GPEP, with the criminal gang coalition, and he supported the Bois-Calais. And the movement gradually petered out because you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, and the gangs had guns. So, but now they're resurrecting the Bois-Calais brand. And what the bourgeoisie is doing is they're hiring gangs to set up barricades in places like Pont-Sondé. We've written about this in the paper, Arcahaie, Solino, various other areas. But they call it a Bois-Calais movement. So it's basically the captured Bois-Calais. They're using the Bois-Calais brand or name, but it's essentially a bourgeois response, fight back to the Vivre Ensemble. So this is almost a form of what you said. They basically are using gangs to fight the Vivre Ensemble. They're not as strong as the GPEP was or organized, and they're more being portrayed as neighborhoods organizing to stop the gangs, but they're essentially a project of the bourgeoisie. So yes, imperialism and the bourgeoisie will always try to use the poorest of the poor who need a meal. The same way they use scabs against a union strike, they will always try to do that.
Okay. I think we had discussed, we had talked about Bois-Calais, and the second time or third time you were on Orinoco Tribune.
Yeah, that was the first Bois-Calais. That was Bois-Calais 1.0,
yes, that
not
was
2.0. Right? Yeah.
Yes, that was 1.0. And I think we had discussed, you had mentioned at that point that there was this probability that the poor people, it's everywhere. In Mexico, it's the narco traffickers who use the poorest people to do their bad, whatever they cannot do, to get killed, etc. So I get it. It's understandable. The same thing happens in Venezuela also. Poor teenagers, they give them money and go burn down things, bring down statues, set fire to hospitals, etc. So it's always understandable that this will happen. And it's probably will depend on the strength, ideological strength, let's say, but also strength of Vivre Ensemble or whatever other organization may come in its place to probably put this down or reinsert them back into their folds. But anyway, so from here we will probably go into the last time, the closing bit, which is the same question that I always ask you, which is exactly this: what do you think a political solution for Haiti would look like?
Well, in the demonstrations we've had over the past 50 years that I've participated in, there's always one slogan, which is "Un seul solution, révolution." There's only one solution, and it's revolution. And I think that's the case right now. Chérizier and Vivre Ensemble have been asking for dialogue. They've been saying, let's try to, discuss this and avoid the terrible violence, the civil war that accompanies any revolution. And the bourgeoisie and the imperialists have been completely unresponsive and not in agreement. Will there end up being negotiations? I don't know. Maybe with the Trump White House, they'll be more prone to that. Trump likes to portray himself as a deal maker, right? Who knows? But, I think Haiti is in mid-explosion now, and it's going to be very hard to put the genie back in the bottle or put the explosion back in the stick of dynamite. This is, a process which has momentum, and people are beginning to see, the need to break away from the empire worldwide, I think, as it gradually loses its strength and becomes more and more overextended, debilitated, compromised, discredited. The genocide in Gaza is just creating converts every day. So I think in Haiti even, which has always held up the US as, some sort of great arbiter and great force for good in Haiti. People are seeing that it's just not been the case. And that's why, to me, at this moment, Haiti has never had a more propitious alignment of the stars for revolutionary change. We have one, the overextended empire, caught up in all of its wars and growing numbers of them around the globe. We have two, the fact that there's no legitimate or legal government in place in Haiti of any sort, not one even mayor, a local official. Three, the people have just had two foreign military interventions in 1994 and 2004, which were terrible experiences. The people, as I said at the UN, were the ones who were massacred and demonized and brutalized. So they're like an antibiotic that you didn't give enough of. They're sort of already immune to this idea that the foreigners are going to bring us peace. And four, the question that there's this division in the ruling class, both the international, but also within Haiti. They're just fighting like cats and dogs among each other, like too many chefs in the kitchen, too many captains on the bridge of the sinking ship. They can't figure out what to do, and they're getting desperate and crazy and doing really dumb stuff. So, this is an interesting moment, very interesting moment. And I think that all the neighboring countries, particularly Venezuela and Cuba, should be following this very closely and understanding the dynamics at play.
Thank you, Kim.
Well, thank you, guys. I mean, really,
Well,
Orinoco, it's like my my go-to website now these days. What happened there? Let me see, and then I get it from you guys. So thank you for everything you do, and we really appreciate your role in the world today.
Thank you, and we appreciate the role of Haiti Liberté.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sahi.
Yeah, I mean, just before closing, I'll just give Kim the opportunity to say anything else that we may have missed. This is also something we may have missed something. So if there is something that we have not talked about that you consider important, now is the time to say it. Then I will ask Jesus to close this out.
Yeah, I just think that really people have to look at the alignment when you find yourself on the same position as the U.S. State Department. Re-examine your position, because there's something wrong with that equation. If you're an anti-imperialist or a leftist or a progressive, when you find your enemy is also the enemy of the State Department and the CIA and the NED and the NDI and the ERI and all the imperialist agencies, something is wrong. Something is wrong. You cannot continue to defend it, no matter what kind of somersaults you make. And a lot of these people, this kind of goes back to the two questions that happened about that. They think they're playing, I don't know, 6-dimensional chess or 10-dimensional chess. This is pretty straightforward. This is the empire trying to crush a spontaneous uprising. Okay, maybe it makes you lose a little face because all your slogans and tough talk over the years are being shown to be just hot air, when here is a guy on the ground risking his life, taking on all the demons, very outgunned, very vilified. And, okay, you may have to eat a little crow. I mean, we freely admit that we had it wrong in the beginning. We were republishing the reports of the NED-supported human rights group RNDDH about Chérizier and the La Saline massacre before we tasted salt, as I said. And, my director, we have him to thank for that, because he's the one who said, Kim, we got it wrong. Go down and talk to Chérizier. I think we got to change our position. So don't be afraid to change your position, comrades. We won't hold it against you. Crow doesn't taste that bad to eat sometimes. So, let's go forward.
Good point, Kim. Good point. I agree completely with you, and it's important also to recognize editorial mistakes, and
Right,
mistakes
right,
happens, and we are all human,
right.
and we are all susceptible to have wrong opinions and wrong positions from time to time. But that's the quality of the human being, that you're, I mean,
Yeah,
if you are
you're able to
capable
change.
of learn it, and be open to receive different sources of information, you always be on the right side. So I believe that's what you're doing in Haiti Liberté, and that's why you and Dan Cohen and all the people that works in Haiti Liberté does, and that's why we always try to follow also whatever happened in Haiti through the lens of Haiti Liberté. And that's why we are certainly going to interview you again with the help of Saheli, that he's always around monitoring also very closely everything that happened in Haiti. So we hope that we can interview you soon, maybe with good news about Haiti. We all
Well,
hope that.
yeah, thank
Un
you very
abrazo.
much. Yeah.
Un abrazo, compa.
Okay, I'm proud too.
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks a
gonna
lot.
stop